How did these get made? It's a fire extinguisher and a Frisbee. Recreation, home safety. Someone had to design these, just like someone designed every other physical product around you. My name's Jon Vogueman. I'm a physical product designer that works at Avail Creative in Golden, Colorado. What is physical product design? There's lots of different kinds of design out there. In the past, it used to just be called product design. It was kind of understood that any product would be a physical item. Somewhere between 20 and 30 years ago, digital product design came on the scene with computers and electronics, lots of different apps and software and firmware. So the biggest confusion is between physical and digital. Physical product design just has to do with things in the physical world. So things typically you can touch them, maybe hold them in your hands, whether it be your car's body kit, the shape of a TV, your cell phone's carrying case. It's everywhere, and someone had to design those products. As far as what the major aspects are of physical product design, I consider it to have two large pillars and then one cloud hanging over both of them. This is the functional and aesthetic pillars, and the cloud hanging over them is user experience. The reason I say it's a cloud is it permeates basically every decision you make, functional or aesthetic, of the product. The function, making it high quality and perform well and solve the problem you want it to solve. The aesthetics and the way that it looks and the perception of value. And then the user experience, you need people to enjoy using it. Or at the very least, not mind using it, not be annoyed by it. Some products define success in terms of the minimal amount of involvement with that product is ideal. So think about bathroom products. You want to use it if you have to, and then forget about it. Other products, you really want the experience to be built in. So think about gaming or driving a vehicle. There are aspects of that you want to give the user a feeling that they are interacting with this product in a way that they enjoy. Maybe that makes them want to come back to it. There are many types of design phases. I've seen graphs online of the product design process, and it's just 3 steps. And that's not how it is in real life. In general, if your first step should always be the research phase. This first phase is almost the most critical of any phase. And yet it's, for some reason, the most skipped of every phase. It's kind of your intuition that you want to go. You want to bring something to market. You think you have the right idea, but you really need to do research before you start. This is where also a lot of good ideas don't make it through. Some ideas that seem really good, you go to do a competitor research survey and you find there's 20 other competitors making the same thing. You had just never heard of them, but you skipped it and it could blow up on you later. So that's a lot of time and money wasted that could have been avoided if you had found things out early in the research phase. The next big phase is the ideation phase. This is really where you do some concept brainstorming, you write things down on paper, you sketch things out, then you whittle down those options to a top few. The next phase is basically designing it in CAD. CAD modeling, that's a 3D software that allows you to model parts in a digital space. When they're designing things in the CAD model, people are looking for how to get something to work in a reasonable size and functionality, and thinking ahead whether these parts or design can be done in reality. Once you have a design formulated, you go into the prototyping phase. This is where you start making a physical prototype to test. That's the end goal. There are different kinds of prototypes. The very first prototype you make is going to be called a proof of concept prototype. These kinds of prototypes are embarrassing to look at often. They're not things you want to show off, but they are nostalgic. So I would keep your proof of concept prototype. If you make it to market with a product, you want to look back at that earliest prototype you make, and you'll probably laugh at it, and you'll smile at it, and you'll say, look how far we've come. So you take that first prototype, you learn from it, you redesign a little bit in your 3D modeling program typically, and you go straight into the next prototype. And you just keep doing that process. So it evolves from a proof of concept prototype into a run-of-the-mill iterative prototype. This is all those little prototypes along the way until you're finally happy with the end product. So You go through these iterative prototypes, each one assessing the pros and cons of it, what things you would change, what things don't work. The next version should be always better than the previous version, and it just keeps getting better and better. At some point, you're going to hone in your design for functionality, aesthetics, and user experience, and bring it to what I would call a final prototype. This would be a fully functioning, beautiful prototype made out of the right materials. This is before you make the product in mass production. So this is just getting even just one single prototype in your hands that is perfect, basically, or as close as you can get it to what it will be like in production before it actually goes into production. Once you have that final prototype, you do everything you need to do to take it from that moment to actually getting it made in production. This is breaking out every single part from that assembly and making technical spec sheet drawings for each one, defining the exact dimensions and tolerances required for each to make everything work. You pick the exact materials you want. There are, for example, hundreds of types of plastics out there, and you need to pick the right plastic that meets your cost, weight, strength, needs, and other criteria that you wouldn't think of until you're deep into it. So you pick the materials, the color, the finish, the textures, the method that it will actually be made. There are tons of ways of making a single part. There's CNC, there's laser cutting, there's 3D printing. There are tons of ways. And each way of making something has its own pros and cons and design-related criteria for it. For example, if I made a part that could be made for 3D printing, and I try to send that to a manufacturer, and let's say all they have is CNC machines, because that's what they use to mass produce these kinds of parts. They say, well, this part is impossible to make. You designed it for 3D printing because that worked for your prototyping, but it doesn't work for mass production. So you have to take a large step back in the process if you don't have that insight early enough. This is really where a professional designer or someone who's been doing it for a long time is going to have that experience and insight that can really help save time down the road. I myself come from a mechanical engineering background, so I approach physical product design from a functional and an engineering standpoint. There's lots of other kinds of physical product designers, though. You have an individual product designer who's a freelancer. Typically, they'll sell their labor for some hourly rate. Now, that's usually not enough to get an entire product to market. So they'll oftentimes have to collaborate or hire outside consultants that can help them complete the product. Very few people can do everything themselves. I mean, that's basically any career. Then you have your growing in size. You have your small product design studios. They typically range anywhere between 2 and 15 people could make a small design studio. Then you have your physical product design teams that are embedded within companies. So you can think of any company that makes a product, Nike, Apple, those are the big ones. But even smaller companies that have been around a while that make physical products that you buy in the store, they almost always have their own internal design team. Although sometimes even the big companies will outsource to some well-known design firm just to get that extra little squeeze of juice out of the orange. Basically, everything we use was a result of someone's creativity. From the products we buy in stores to the things we use in homes, physical products are an important aspect of our everyday lives. If you have a product idea or any questions, go to our website. We're happy to help.